Good morning, everyone. Today I wanted to walk you through Psalm 65 using both the English text and the Hebrew text and point out a few very fascinating characteristics of this psalm, which is a psalm of thanksgiving. Also a little more cheerful than some of the things that we've already been dealing with. We're moving now into some of the other genres a little bit, and the Song of Thanksgiving here is one of them. So we'll do a typical reading with the time, location, characters, and objects idea from the text world theory perspective. In order to do this well, I would like you to download the PDF of Psalm 65 that I've made for you from the Hebrew text, and also to have a copy then of the English text as well, because of course, unless you're pretty fancy with Hebrew, it's not necessary to try to even translate any of this on the Hebrew page at all, but just really to get a feel for what the Hebrew text looks like after your professor's gone after it a little bit here. So the first thing I wanted to point out to you is that Psalm 65, like about probably 30 or 40% of the Psalms, is actually numbered differently in the Hebrew than it is in the English. And because of this, if you look at the Hebrew text, you're going to be one number off. So the number that we would have for verse 1 is actually in the Hebrew verse 2, and so forth. So the Hebrew text of this one has the superscription numbered with number 1. You'll see that at the top. It's highlighted in pink, okay, with a little notation that says Hebrew numbers. So when you go to read a commentary, for example, if you're reading the word commentary, oftentimes they've used the Hebrew numbering rather than the English numbering to describe what's going on in that psalm, because it's a technical commentary and sometimes might have a head-scratching moment. So just to be aware of that fact, that if the numbers seem to be 1 or 2 off, it's because of the difference in the Hebrew versus the English numbering. So according to my analysis, and also the way it's laid out in the New International Version, this psalm divides up really well into 3 sections. Okay, so in the English it would be verses 1 through 4, verses 5 through 8, and verses 9 through 13. And then, of course, in the Hebrew, it would be 2 through 5, 6 through 9, and 10 through 14. So as we're talking here, and I'm pointing at the Hebrew, again, notice that you're a little bit offset from what's going on in the English. So I went through this Hebrew text and actually formed it into kola, separating the parts of lines, pretty much according to how the accent marks in the Hebrew would indicate that they would be broken up. And I was looking for some examples of parallelism that would actually show up in the English as they do in the Hebrew. And I think I found at least one good set. So we'll talk about that after a little bit. But laying it out this way, I thought it was very interesting to kind of look at the different characteristics of what's going on. Now, we remember from lament psalms that there's always at least 3 characters: God, the psalmist, and then the enemies. This is a Thanksgiving psalm, and for a refreshing change in this one, we don't have any enemies. So in looking for characters are marked out in green. I've chosen to circle the word Elohim, and there's an English translation right underneath it, and it's in the second line down. Okay, so we have a direct mention of God, but it's God mentioned as Elohim. So in an English Bible, it would be translated G-O-D, little o and little d, rather than Lord, which is L-O-R-D in small caps for Yahweh. So this is one where God is referred to as Elohim. Now, I've also circled a few other things there, and you can see the similarities there almost all the way down. We have some suffixes that are attached there. Now, there's a couple of different kinds of suffixes, but they look